In this video, we're going to look at some business examples about data merging. First, let's consider why data merging is important. In general, the most fascinated and unexpected insights are usually not already together in one data set, because once a data set is collected, those who collected it think the information there is useful and they use those relationships right away. And they've brought those things together because they already know the relationships. But it's when things that were not originally thought of as going together are then brought together and merged into one that surprises can come up. Those are the unexpected insights. So, for example, if an organization were to collect a sales database, well, you might have amounts of sales as the main thing being predicted, and maybe you find that the amount of advertising spent affects sales. Maybe things like the demand from customers affects sales. So these are kind of expected. But when you bring in things that are not part of that data set, maybe from outside, such as maybe weather information, and you find that based on weather forecasts, there are storms coming that might affect the availability of foods, and so people suddenly increase what they're purchasing, or perhaps there's international interest rates that change, and so people uh, who have a view of buying things internationally might increase or decrease their purchases, or it might be internal information, such as maybe looking at uh, the production line, like the staffing on the production line, how that affects the amount of products available to be put out for sale. That's when bringing in these other data sets suddenly brings out information that might not have been expected to begin with. So we're going to look at some examples of these things, but just before that, a quick note on terminology. When we talk about data merging, there's different terms for it. It's also called data blending, the idea of blending different data sets together. And you'll often hear about joining data, which specifically is just one type of merging data. There's many different ways to blend or merge data, and joining is a very specific kind. Okay, so now let's look at some specific business examples. In this example, there's an organization that bought some very expensive machines for manufacturing and calibration, and these cost like millions of euros each. And machines like that need to be used constantly, maybe even 24/7, so that eventually they increase efficiency, increase production, and recuperate their expenses. However, in this particular scenario, the company found that their machines were breaking down a lot. Now, any high quality machine will eventually break down, so it needs to be maintained. But when they're breaking down maybe every few months, and when they're like down for a few days, and then that means they're not working, and so those are earnings being lost. It became quite expensive. These constant breakdowns became quite expensive, and by analyzing the logs of the performance and finding out, because these machines had a lot of sensor data, analyzing and going through these, the company was not able to find out why these machines were breaking down, and it was unusual. As I said, machines will break down and they need to be maintained, but this was far more frequent than what was expected. And so this was costing the company quite a bit of money. But then eventually they had the idea to bring in some of the human resources data concerning shifts. That's when different people were working, when they signed in, when signed out, took vacations, and so on. And that's when the light bulb came on, because they found that the employees who were scheduled or who were assigned to do the routine maintenance before the breakdown happened, well, they took vacations at different times, but whenever someone who's scheduled to do the maintenance was on vacation when the maintenance was supposed to be done, then the maintenance was skipped, and then the machine had a much higher chance of failure. And by merging these two data sets and then seeing this link between the presence of key maintenance employees and the eventual breakdown of the machines, then the solution became clear. They just made sure that these employees were not permitted to take vacations at the maintenance times, or the maintenance times were pushed earlier or right after, not forgotten about, or maybe they found a replacement. But once the maintenance stops were not missed because of people's schedules, then suddenly the machines performed much more normally, and then the breakdowns were no longer abnormally high. This example is from the United States government, specifically the department of the government that maintains the buildings of the U.S. government. Maintaining buildings is ultimately for the benefit of the employees who work there day in and day out. That is their work environment, and they spend most of their working hours in the offices. And so it needs to be comfortable in temperature. The air quality needs to be good so that they can maintain good health. There needs to be adequate lighting so that they feel positive in the environment. But when you have many people working in a building, people have different preferences. People come in and out at different times. The temperature changes based on weather conditions. The appropriate heating or cooling inside changes. And so it's a very complex mix to satisfy everyone. So this project involved using the Internet of Things to gather data from intelligent sensors throughout the building. The Internet of Things refers to connecting devices that traditionally are not thought of as internet connected, but connecting them to the internet so that they can communicate with each other with necessary information in real time. And so with that, they could sense the temperature in different rooms. They could sense the air quality. They could sense the lighting. They could sense the presence of people's movements. And then with this massive collection of data from many different devices from outside the building, inside the building, different rooms, by merging these data sets, the building could intelligently calibrate the environment for the welfare of the employees who work there. Here's a marketing example related to customer surveys, generally finding out what customers want. So this is one of the most basic things that any organization does in marketing. And a standard approach is surveying customers. That's whether trying to talk to them on the phone or surveying them face to face when they come to physical stores or sending them email surveys. But the point is trying to contact customers directly to find out their experiences with the products and services, their intentions for the future. And the advantages of surveys like this are mainly that the organizations can ask exactly what questions they want to know exactly what they want. But these are quite expensive because it takes employees designing these surveys, collecting them, analyzing them. Another approach to obtaining or sensing customer sentiment is trying to find out what different people are posting about the company on social media. So people spontaneously post positive experiences, maybe post pictures, and companies can track what's going on in social media to know exactly what's, or maybe not exactly, but to get a sense of how people feel about their company. So the advantage of this is that this is unsolicited. So in a way, it's more authentic. It's what people really feel. But one major disadvantage of trying to get customer sentiment through social media that it tends to be extreme. Extreme in the sense that it's mainly when customers are really happy or really upset with the company that they'll go out of their way to post something. Those who just have moderate feelings usually aren't motivated to actually post. And so there's a big hole of perhaps the majority of customers who might have more moderate feelings, big hole in knowing what they feel. So this company, Synthesio, works with marketing companies or works with the marketing departments of companies to try to integrate these approaches. On one hand, to prepare surveys that ask pointed questions. And another advantage of surveys is that, in contrast to social media, where social media people post very often in the emotion of the moment. Uh, an advantage of surveys is that companies can ask more stable emotional questions. In other words, questions that are not how the customer feels right now, but maybe looking back in the last week, the last month, how have you felt about the company? So by helping to do survey and then helping to analyze what there is in social media and then bringing these together, Synthesio helps companies to get a more complete view and more balanced view of customer sentiment concerning their products and services.